Hey guys, this is Letters to You in number 44. Heal Thyself. I was in a session yesterday in London. It was a mix of circlers and relatefulers, and we did surrendered leadership slash flow. The group was awesome. My friend Robin was leading, and he had only invited experienced people. They were good at staying in. Some of them were less talkative, some of them were frozen and noticed it. And people were definitely loving each other. I grew and felt and healed, like I always do. This morning, I was thinking of telling you about the training I did with Robert Tennyson Stevens. He was a consciousness teacher who developed a system called conscious language. When he was 19, he was studying the Hopi language and he realized that they didn't have a word for now. He surmised it was because they never left it. He spent his life traveling and teaching, and his system was incredibly interesting and powerful, but it was difficult for some people because it required a lot of faith. It was so much faith and so much more than the world would consider sane that it really short circuited people. There was a moment in the flow last night where a woman named some anger and that there was grief underneath. She was so awesome because she named that this flow wasn't the place to bring this level of grief, but she didn't make everybody wrong for it. She touched it at the edge of where she could, and she stayed porous to other people being with her. We stayed with her, and I trusted that she knew this wasn't the place to bring it. Circling slash relatefulness isn't specifically about healing. It's about development, and development can include healing, but we're not doing therapy. I often tell people that paying a professional trauma therapist is often avoided because the trauma itself doesn't believe that it deserves undivided attention. That's the kind of place that trauma should purposefully be felt. One of Bob's trainings was called body electronics. It was fucking nuts. One person would lie on a massage table, and then, based on Bob's different systems, he took pictures of our eyeballs and made determinations based on different characteristics. He would tell us where to press our fingers into their body. They were like acupressure points. It kind of hurt to both press and be pressed on. The thing I noticed when I was on the table was that it felt like the energy or electricity that was in everybody's bodies built up. Everybody felt it, and when I was on the table, it felt like my mind's eye was in extreme high definition. Like a memory would come up, and it would almost feel like I was there. So cool. He gave a very specific instruction for the people pressing their fingers into the person. Do not attempt to help them, but instead be with whatever comes up in you while you're in contact. As a presser, I noticed that lots of stuff about me came up for me. It was scary and almost annoying that I'm doing something to somebody else and my own trauma and memories were being stirred up. I followed the instructions and just noticed, loved, and worked with what came up in me. Something that happened over and over again was the person on the table would contract as if they were with something. I would see something come up in myself. Through an act of will, I would orient to the thing in me. It would release after a little bit of time. The person on the table would uncontract over and over and over. A lot of conclusions were probably possible, but the one I drew was that somehow, energetically, me facing my healing was enabling everyone to face their own healing. My friend Kai does some interesting energy healing that he learned from a Tai Chi master in Tennessee, and he alluded to the same thing. When he places his hands on a person's body, though it looks like he's focusing on them, in his mind, he's actually focusing on his own body. Some strange physics are in play about all of us being connected. Last night, when the woman brought the grief, I noticed pain underneath my right rib. Being with her, I said, I think my grief is here too. My attraction/attention immediately went to a woman to my right who hadn't said much. I split my attention: woman with grief, my rib pain, and the woman who hadn't said much. I didn't say everything to everybody because I wanted to sit in it. I named it slowly through different pieces of time. My grief is here too. I notice my attention going to you. There's pain right here. The woman who my attention was going to unfroze herself at one point and said that she didn't feel in. I noticed an intrusive cognition about one of my boyfriends and I in Bed Bath & Beyond in a moment where I asked him, "Would you speak your thoughts out loud? I'd feel closer to you if I knew what you were thinking." At the time, he lit up and said, "I couldn't imagine anybody caring what I was thinking. My husband doesn't seem to care. I can do that." I asked the woman, "I'm having a really strong projection with you. Do you mind if I share it? Please." "Do you think nobody wants to hear what you're thinking?" "Exactly." And she seemed to release something. And then I noticed a memory of sitting in the garage with my dad when I was young and being so bored and wishing he would talk to me. He was showing me how he fixed the car, but he wasn't saying anything. I realized that in the memory, I didn't think he liked me. The woman with the first grief was still holding herself on her edge, and lots of people were flowing with her and interacting. And it didn't feel like I was interrupting her because I was pacing my words and shares so that it was all interwoven. I then said, "The grief in me is that I thought my father didn't like me, but he did. And I missed out on meeting him because my young self had this story that he didn't like me." The pain in my rib subsided. The woman in the grief never shared the grief, but she touched it. She touched it rawly and stayed in connection. She still thought it wasn't the right place to go deeper, but she got a lot of love and connection. I don't have any proof that touching my grief helped her. The journey did allow me to say to her, "I'm sure you will be met someday when the space feels ready to you." It seemed to give her comfort. Somebody else got mad at me for saying that, and I eventually replied, "I don't push people as much as I can, but I don't change who I am in order to back up or fear of doing something wrong. People who jump on their own always survive." And she's definitely a person who can hold herself and know when it's the right time to jump. I'm not sure if there's some mystical woo connection to healing myself as an effort to heal them. I do know that it takes some of the pressure off for people to realize that they're not the aberration for having trauma come up in a session. It can also be a good moment of modeling the love and compassion needed to let healing occur. She didn't need the modeling, but we weren't the only two people in the room. I find that facilitators who fastidiously look to focus on the person with the most apparent pain often miss their own. Iterated over long periods of time, they seem to lose the ability to receive the love that they need. They become hierophants. That's a tarot card. It looks like a like a rotting pope. They become hierophants, symbols of love that never get to be themselves or receive love as people, even though people are quite capable of loving leaders. I often tell my trainees, "You're the most important person in the room. If you weren't here leading us, then nobody would be here. You want to protect the thirsty, but you're ignoring the fountain." It is my way of trying to undo the complex of being seen as too selfish, the last person included, when trying to include everybody is usually the self. This way may be slower. I don't know. Maybe it's faster to put the self on a shelf and just be with somebody. Maybe that's what the trauma therapists are doing. In the relational arts, I still believe that we must always go together, slowly and forever. Shaking off the gummy I took last night by writing to you. It was fun, but it makes the writing more difficult. Love, Mike.